Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is tapped by President-elect Donald Trump to lead the Health and Human Services Department, has drawn some criticism over comments that he made about the health effects of fluoride in the public water supply. Right before the November 5th presidential election, RFK Jr. wrote on X, "On January 20th, the Trump White House will advise all U.S. water systems to remove fluoride from public water. Fluoride is an industrial waste associated with arthritis, bone fractures, bone cancer, IQ loss, neurodevelopmental disorders, and thyroid disease. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump want to make America healthy again." Trump has spoken of empowering Kennedy to let him act out his agenda outside of oil and gas policy. The news also gave a boost to the dental company stocks, who are in speculation that the removal of fluoride from drinking water could spur demand for their services.
According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, this practice of fluoridation is a practical, costly, cost-effective and equitable way for communities to improve their residents' oral health. But recent studies about the effect of excessive fluoride levels have raised doubts among some environmental groups and health experts who want to stop fluoridation. To prevent and break the effects and concerns of fluoridation is Michael Connett, partner at Siri Glimstad, who won the landmark fluoride case, Food and Water Watch versus EPA. That inspired RFK's tweet announcing his recommendation to have fluoride removed from drinking water. Welcome to Rising.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So look, what is the basic case? As I understand it, some European countries do not in fact have fluoride in the drinking water, but most do, and a lot of people defend it on the basis of dental health in particular. So what's the case to be made in the opposite direction?
Well, certainly, the vast majority of Europe does not fluoridate its water. At present, about 98% of the European population does not have any fluoride chemicals added to their water. There's a number of reasons for this. The first is that fluoride is the only chemical that we add to water that doesn't actually treat the water. It treats the people drinking the water, namely for the purpose of a medical benefit of reducing tooth decay. And most European countries have determined that the water supply is not an appropriate way of delivering medical treatment to the population, especially where, as with fluoride, we have an abundant supply of individual use fluoride products like toothpaste. Toothpaste is not expensive, it's readily available at grocery stores, and Europe has decided that the appropriate way of using fluoride is on an individual level. And that's really where we here in the United States should be headed as well, because we know today, contrary to what was initially believed when we started fluoridating water back in the 1940s, we know today that fluoride's predominant way of helping the teeth is by topical contact with the outside of the tooth, not by swallowing it. In other words, you don't need to be ingesting fluoride to get the benefit. But the risks of fluoride, including risks on the developing brain, come from the ingestion of fluoride. So I think if we're really going to protect public health here, we should be shifting away from using fluoride in a way that unnecessarily exposes the whole body to this toxicant and focus on the one area of the body, the teeth, where fluoride can do some good. So I'm hopeful, given the court's ruling that fluoridation presents an unreasonable risk to human health, that the U.S. will finally follow the path of Europe and stop fluoridating its drinking water.
Can you give us an update on what the state of the court rulings are, what progress you've made? I know you've worked with a group, done legal work to bring about this result. Can you tell our viewers what exactly did happen?
Yes. So we had the litigation took 7 years. We had 2 bench trials featuring 17 days of expert testimony from government scientists and leading academic scientists who have researched fluoride toxicity. And this September, an Obama-appointed judge from the Northern District of California issued an 80-page ruling where the court concluded that fluoridation poses an unreasonable risk to human health in the form of reduced IQ in children. And based on this unreasonable risk, the court has ordered the EPA to take regulatory action to address the risk. So EPA is now under court order to do something about fluoridation. And under the statute that this case was brought under, the Toxic Substances Control Act, there's no question that EPA has the authority, if it so chooses, to implement a nationwide ban on fluoridation. There's no question about that. So we are hopeful that in the new administration, the EPA will exercise that authority to address the risk that the court has identified.
Michael, I'm sure you're well aware of all the counter arguments made here, but you know, an obvious place to go to see one of those arguments is the CDC itself, which does argue here, and I'm quoting directly from their website, drinking fluoridated water keeps teeth strong and reduces cavities by about 25% in children and adults. Do you disagree? Do you think that finding is wrong, or do you think that the downside of fluoride in terms of things like brain health is so great that it outweighs those effects?
First, I think I think the CDC is using outdated data. But second, I had the opportunity in this court case to depose under oath a representative of the CDC. And it was the director of CDC's Division of Oral Health. And he admitted under oath that, again, fluoride's predominant benefit is topical. You don't need to swallow it. And that there's no benefit at all from fluoridated water exposure in the womb for the, in utero exposures. There's no benefit there. There's no benefit from fluoridated water for newborn infants. And that's an important admission there because it's the early phases of life in the womb in an early infancy where there's the greatest concern today about impact on brain health. We have studies, birth cohort studies funded by the National Institutes of Health, which have consistently found associations between prenatal fluoride exposure and reduced IQ in children. So we now have a situation where we have an identified risk, a risk that the court found to be unreasonable, and we have no offsetting benefit during that period of life. Again, the CDC admitted there's no benefit from prenatal exposure and no benefit from early infancy exposure. So I think that's something that policymakers need to grapple with, because when you're adding a chemical to water, everyone's going to be exposed, including pregnant mothers, including bottle-fed babies. And I think it's an unsafe way of using this chemical.
Michael Connett, thank you so much for joining us to discuss. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.